and partly in response to a query that I've seen online, what I'd like to cover today is very briefly to look at CollectionViews. Now, CollectionViews are iOS only, and they're iOS 6 and above only. And what I'd particularly like to talk about is starting really from the Xamarin documentation. So Xamarin have really good docs about the introduction to CollectionViews. And there's a really good sample there just for MonoTouch on its own. And CollectionViews are kind of like table views. They're kind of, repeated information. They're list boxes, if you like. But they allow you, as you can see, lots more choice about how you do layout. So that's where we're starting. And what I'm going to start from is I've just taken a copy of a solution we did back in number 3. And so if we take a look at this, if I can get back, this is the solution that we did, which was for kittens. And so let me just open it up. Hopefully it still runs. And you can see we get the problems about the Windows Phone projects, which we don't need to worry about. But if we set the startup project to be kittenview.touch and we hit run, then hopefully it should go off and it should launch the simulator and we can see where we were at the end of this. And where it was a table view that just showed a list of kittens. So hopefully we can see this with a custom cell. So there's our table view and here's our list of kittens, as you can see. So that's where we started, where we're going to start from. But what we want to do is we want to replace this table view with one of these collection views, and then we'll play with the way that the layout works. So let's get on with that. And what we have to do is, you can see that at the moment here we have on screen our first view, and our first view is using an MVX table view controller. So that's going to have to change to an MVX collection view controller, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're just going to take table view controller and replace it with collection view. But because collection view requires this additional layout, that means we're also going to need to provide a constructor. And the parameter that this guy takes as its base class constructor is a UI collection view. So use UI collection view layout. So what I'll do is I'll just add a UI. What's the default layout called? I believe it might just be called a UI collection view layout. Let me just find out. Where's the constructor? Sorry about this delay. I believe it's just a UI collection view layout, but I'll just check. So somewhere we have in this all this information about cells. We eventually get to the layout. And yeah, okay, so it's called a new UI collection view flow layout is what we're going to add. Let's do that. And then this guy has some properties which we're going to set. And if you want to take a look at these, then hopefully I can pull them up. Nope, can't pull them up there. But there's things like there's an item size. There's a size. Clearly I don't know what the size is. Let me just check. So there's things like in the layout, there's things like the section inset, which we're not that interested in. But there should be other things as well, like the actual size of this, which obviously I'm failing to find at the moment, and it's not coming up in IntelliSense. I thought it was item size. We'll have to come back to it. It's not. Okay, so I'll come back to that. There are properties that we will want to set. Maybe it's because I put the semicolon in that it's complaining. No. Right, so I will come back to that, but there are properties that we're going to want to set before we call that base class down. Moving on from there, apologies for that slight hiccup. The next problem we've got is in view.didLoad, and there are actually two problems we've got here, and this is a bit fiddly to explain, but basically one of the problems we have with a collection view is that iOS and the UI kit in the base layers actually breaks our own setup. And what happens is in the base class constructor, the view is accessed. So the very UI collection view controller access, the view is accessed, and this means that this method, this virtual view.didLoad, will actually get called before this class is constructed. And that's a general C# problem, a general .NET problem when it's interacting with iOS. But the way that we work around it here is I just add a field, and this field is just going to be a bool saying is initialized. And what I do is I check that in the constructor. Well, no, I set that in the constructor here. Is initialized equals true. And then I take a second call to view did load. And this is a bit horrible. It's a bit nasty. It means that we should probably here add a sealed so that we're not doing another virtual call. And then what we have to do is in this, Control Z, in this constructor we have to, in this view did load, we actually have to test, have we been initialized, and if we haven't, we return. Now I apologize for that, there's not a lot we can do about it, but this is just a general problem with the view did load pattern in monotouch, in Xamarin.touch, Xamarin.ios, and it's something where you have to be aware of when it happens. It doesn't happen in many places, it pretty much happens in CollectionView. I have seen it happen in TableView, but not very often. And it does happen in the TabView controller occasionally as well. Right, with that done, we can then get on with the rest of this. So we now get into our TableView source. So we don't want a TableView source anymore. What we want instead is we want a CollectionView source. So there is a class there handy for us called CollectionView source. And just like the TableView source, the first thing we pass in is the view that it's going to affect. But then we hit problems because we actually want to pass in as well the key, the default cell identifier. And we can't do that at the moment because we haven't created a cell, so I'm just going to leave to do. Yeah. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to actually set that up so we can replace these guys, and we need to set the collection view source rather than table view source the other way. Oops, too many L's. And that should then actually set it up without any problems. And there's one more thing we would need to do, and we can't do that until we've created our cell, which is we do here also have to register our cell for renews. So we'd have to register the nib for cell, and again we've got a to do here and a to do again. So we've got a few to dos to do, and in order to get on with those, sorry, there's one more table view to change down the bottom here. But in order to get on with our to dos, what we have to do is we have to take this kitten cell from before, and we have to change it into a collection view cell. So to do that, let's sorry, too many of those. Let's create a new collection view cell, and you can do that in the file new. You'll find an iPhone collection view. And so what I'm going to do is call this kitten col cell. I'll call it kitten collection cell. Yeah. Hit new, and it will go off and do its normal iOS monotouch thing, Xamarin.ios thing of creating the designer file, creating the main file, and creating the nib. Let's get straight into the nib and start editing it. And what you see is we get a very small cell to start with. The default of these is 50 by 50 even. Let's make our kittens quite large. So let's use something like, we're going to go for 240 width, say, and we will go for a 400 height. So these are going to be quite big cells. Let's make the default background color something distinctive, because black's not very good for that sometimes. So let's add a yellow as the color. And then let's start putting some content in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a general UI view in there. And I'll put that, I don't want to fill the whole area, so I'll put that top left, say. So I'll make sure it's there sized. And let's put this, shall we put it as halfway across, which I think was 100. No, I must have made it 240. We'll put it 0 top. Width we will make 240, and height we will just make it quite small, 120. And you can see that's where that sits now, and I think I may have the width wrong, so let me pull that down to 140 so it fits in. Yeah, so you can see that's now sized, and you know, if we did have resizing, I could use these constraints to actually set that up. Right, so with that done, let me now also add some fields. So we're going to add a label, which is going to be the kitten's name. Let's add that there. And that's going to be kitten's name, so I'll just put some text in. It's Kitty's name. And let's add one more label, which is going to be the price. And just for fun, I'll make that quite big. Oops, I'll make that quite big text. So center align it, and yeah, and that will typically be a price like that. So there's our labels that we've set up. We also would like an image, so let's add that. And we'll add the image in here. We've obviously got some more sizing issues and things to sort out. So the image is good. We want to be underneath the view, so I'll just move it on this panel. And then we'd like it to fill the area. So what I'll do is I will put it at 0, 0. And I think our sizes were 240 and was it 400 height? So there's our image filled. So the remaining thing we have to do is show the assistant editor. And in the assistant editor, we just want to hook up these fields, these labels and things to something meaningful. So we do that. First one is name label. Done. Second one, this is the price label. So this is all very familiar to you from looking before at the table views and at other zib-based design. And then the final thing here is to do the image view. So let's do that. And this is main image. So those are our collection cell fields hooked up. We just save everything. Please save. And then we will, let's just switch back to Xamarin Studio, Mono Develop, and see whether or not that's picked that up in the designer. It hasn't yet. Can we trick it into doing so? Let me save again and save again. And hopefully now it will pick it up. So there it is, it's picked it up. So we've got name label, price label, and main image. So what we now do is we go back to the kittens collection cell. And at the moment you can see it inherits from a UI collection view cell. We need to change that to an MVX, just because it's going to be an MVX. And Alt-Enter will bring up our autocomplete. And then in the constructor, we know we've also got to set up our binding. So first of all, we'll set up one of those helper things that helps with the image. So that's a private read-only image view loader. And I'll just call it loader for now. And we'll create that in the constructor. Loader equals new MVX image view loader. And the constructor for that takes a func, an expression, which is going to be the accessor. Sorry, it is a func, it's not an expression. Going to be the accessor for the image, and that is the main image, was it called? Main image. So there's our loader. And the next thing we want to do is set up our binding. So to do that, we do exactly as we did with the cell. We could actually copy and paste this code. But what we do is we set up delay binding. So it's going to bind the first time there is actually information to bind to. And to do that, we use this syntax. See whether or not, again, we'd have to pull in the namespace. So we do Alt-Enter and pull it in. And what we can do then is we can do a set for binding. Set equals this dot create binding set. And it's a binding set from this kitten collection cell to a kitten, which is one of our service objects. Again, you may need to go back to the previous sample to actually work out, you know, some of the meanings here, but hopefully for most of you you'll remember it. If not, it's number 3 and number 2 with these kittens. So we get the sample up and we get the binding set, and now we want to add things to it. So we do set dot bind, and for this we want to bind first of all our labels. So one of them was the name label, and the name label we want to bind to the so this is on the kitten, so it's on the kitten, and I presume it's the name on the kitten. We then want to bind the have we got more than one kitten defined? We want to bind the price label, and we want to bind the price to kitten dot price, and then we want to bind this loader as well. So set dot bind and underscore loader, and we're binding the image URL to this guy. So let's just do that to kitten.image URL. So that's just normal binding that you've done lots before, and the last thing we do is set.apply. And that should be our collection cell finished. So hopefully that's going to be reasonable in terms of it should just work. We'll find out in a moment. And then what we need to do is go back into our first view, and those to-dos we need to fill in. So the first thing was filling in this CollectionView.register nib for cell. So let's do it. And this is kitten cell dot, so it's nib first, and then it's the key. kittencell.key. And IntelliSense will help you out with what you're supposed to put in here. And then the second thing is on the source, we need to again pass in the key that it's going to use. If you're using multiple types of cells, you'd have to inherit from this guy. And there's a method called get or create cell that you'd have to override. So there's our collection view, and I believe that should now work. Now the one thing I haven't managed to do is actually work out this collection view flow layout. So let me just see if I can get some more IntelliSense for that. If I had one of these, so there is an item size on there, but it just wasn't coming up in IntelliSense earlier for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and create it, equals new, size F, this size F. So we would like a 240 by 400 to be the sizes for our items. You can do more or less than that, obviously, but that should work. Okay, so now hopefully, apologies for the problems there, this should hopefully now load and run. Let's see whether or not it does. First of all, let's build it, see if I made any mistakes. And I did. Okay, so there is one problem here, which is the MvvmCross collection view cell at the moment doesn't have quite the right parameters to it, so I apologize for this. So you do actually have to pass in a string.empty to it. This is a bug in MvvmCross and is fixed, but wasn't fixed in the versions of that went out in the NuGet packages, so apologies. So you won't have to do this in the future, but what this is some default binding text if you wanted to use it. Apologies, that's not working right now. I will have to fix that and get new NuGet packages out. So that's it, that's the one problem at the moment, and I could probably leave it to do by it. So let me just put that in there, /to do. This isn't really needed. And it's an MvvmCross bug. Also got a feature. So apologies for that, but now we should be able to run this up. And we will hopefully be able to work around that empty field soon. So we run it up, and now when we go to the simulator, we should, we've got a problem. What is it? So we've got a problem, which is that the thing is null. So did I get something wrong in my constructor for the first view? Okay, so what I missed was the not on that protection. So basically, again, let me just go through that. So this MvvmCross collection view controller has a problem. The problem is that within the UI kit, way down in the bowels of Objective-C and UI kit, the constructor for UI collection view controller accesses and creates the view. Because it accesses and creates the view, viewDidLoad gets called in Objective-C, which sends a message out to the selector, which then means that in MonoTouch in the C# world, we get this virtual call here called before the object is actually being constructed, and we can't handle it there. So instead of that, we set up this hack, if you like, here in the constructor, which means that we call is viewDidLoad again later in the access chain. So that's what happened, and I just missed this not when I was doing my test earlier. Problems with live coding. So let's try running this again. Apologies for that. And now hopefully it's combining to native code. It's going to go over to the simulator and launches the app. And hopefully, no, we've still got a problem. Assertion failure in UI collection view. So I had another problem. This is all live coding. And this time the problem is something to do with CollectionView. So the problem here is very straightforward. I have registered a kitten cell with my nib, and it should have been the other one. So I registered the old kitten, and I apologize for that. I should have registered, so I registered the table with the CollectionView. I really need to sort out this live coding today. Apologies for that, but you can see, you know, it's iterative coding. Hopefully if you download the source from the web afterwards, you won't see any of these problems. Finally I run, and this time hopefully I'll see a collection view. So here's my collection view. You can see it's very different to the table view before, and you can see how, you know, the layout is used in there. Now if I had just played with some of the parameters here, then I think one of the parameters I can play with on this guy is scroll. Right, I'm going to have to come out again. I'm not getting the IntelliSense I wanted in there, so let me just do it again. UI collection view. Flow layout, F, semicolon, F dot, and there should be a scroll direction is what I was looking for. And I should be able to set that to a scroll direction horizontal. So now if I just take that code, I'll just comment that out so I can get back to it. And I put that into the thing. Now what we should now be able to do is when we run this up, start debugging, then we should see that we get a different type of scroll. We should get horizontal scrolling now. Let's see if this works. Right, so now you can see we get exactly the same thing, but we get horizontal scrolling in our collection view. Yeah, so you know, it's more kittens, same size we're doing still, but we've changed the behavior just by changing this flow layout. So that's one thing. What we could also do is, one of the things that came up while we were at Evolve was this rotating collection view here. This roulette layout is what it was called, and it was borrowed from some Objective-C code. So you can see here's the original Objective-C complete with some cards, and that's what we used. So what we can do is, if I go back to the C#, we can actually just take that layout. It's not very complicated, and it's in these files here, this card layout, and we'll just take the flow. So if we grab hold of the card layout flow, obviously normally you do this some other way, not by cut and paste, but let's do that, and let's create a new class, new file, and this is just going to be a general empty class flow. So hopefully it's going off and creating that for us. Then what we're going to do is we're going to replace that with what I've just cut and paste. And obviously in here there'll be an awful lot of things that we want to change. So let me change them. That's using monotouch. That's using system.drawing. Got a size in here that we need to drag in. Alt.enter is working really well here, by the way, so you can just use it. We've got some 3D transforms from core animation we're going to bring in. Got some maths that we're going to bring in. Okay, so maths was another one that we hacked in, so let me just find it here. Card layout, maths, and so it's just a very simple little static class, so we'll drag that in as well. Is there anything else that's going to need doing? No, so this is going to be it. And then hopefully, once we've done that, we should be able to build. Let me just see if that builds the material that's brought in. Okay, so that seemed to have built. So now what we can do is just take hold of that card layout view. Yeah. Now card layout flow, as you can see here, takes a super view of the UI view. So that's the whole of the window. So let's see how this is going to work. I guess what we're going to need to do, let's see whether or not we can get this to work, is we are probably, I don't know if this is going to work even. We may need to use an embedded first view to get collection views to get this working, but let's see whether or not it can work. What we'll try and do here is we'll try and create that flow. So we'll do flow equals new card layout flow, and we'll pass in the collection view. This may not work. Let's see whether it works or not. And then what we'll do is collection view dot, and this is layout, set collection view layout, and this is going to change the flow live, and we're not going to do it animated. And let's see whether this works. It may not work because we're using the collection view inside itself, which would be a shame. In which case we'll find another way of doing it. Don't worry, we will find a way. But let's just run that up and see what happens. It may make exception because we kind of got the parent as the child of itself, so it may go all sorts of wrong. But now we changed the layout to a different flow, and what happens? Now you can see we get this very strange flow going on here. And you can see we're not doing particularly well with our layout, but hopefully you can see we've got these cats and things. It's just we're not quite the effect we wanted to see. So as I said, that may have gone wrong, but what we can probably do, let's see if we can, is if we add another view, and we'll add it so that it's got the same frame as we do. Okay, I'll just create a new rectangle F, see if it does it. So this is going to be the whole of the window that we'll go for. So we'll try. This may not work, in which case it will teach me a lesson for trying live things. So we're going to go for a 0, 0, 320, let's go for 480 as the height for now. And that should give us that, and we will add view, but we'll also make the view transparent. Clear, which hopefully will allow it to work, and then we'll just set the parent of this layout flow to be that transparent view. This may or may not work. Let's give it another go and see if it helps. But what I'm hoping you can see is that you can change these views to something very dramatically different. You know, even if I haven't got it right here, hopefully you can see, you know, okay, so again, it's not working brilliantly, but you can see that we have got a very different view that we've actually used. I should probably stop there. I may just remove that code that's got these guys in there. But I hope that what you can see is that, you know, you can do very exciting things, very different things with this with these collection views, and that it's not too much work, but there are some little hacks to actually change from a collection view to a change from a table view to a collection view, and it works pretty much the same as it did with a table cell. So if I delete, no, I'll leave the old table stuff in there, that's not a problem. But hopefully, so I'm leaving this in the state, and this is how I'll check it in, that it has got the collection cell working, but in a horizontal direction. So hopefully here you should see, yeah, so there's our view vaguely working for collection views. And I hope that's a reasonable explanation, at least, about how you can use collection cells and collection tables. So cool. I will stop mixing my words. I hope that's good enough for you guys. Cheers. Next up, I really want to start on a bigger sample for N+1, so I'll stop messing around with these individual controls and dive into something more substantial. Thanks, guys.